I'm standing in my hallway, barefoot on cold wood, holding my daughter's unicorn pajamas, when I hear my husband's voice slice through the quiet from her bedroom. That fat hippo you call mom disgusts me. He's talking to our 6-year-old daughter, Lyra, my baby girl who still sleeps with a stuffed rabbit and believes every word her daddy says. Her small voice comes next, confused, hurt. But daddy, why don't you kiss mommy goodnight anymore? Lucian laughs, low, casual, like he's explaining why grass is green. Men like pretty things, sweetheart. You'll understand when you're older. Mommy's lazy. She eats too much. That's why she's always tired. I can't move. I'm frozen in the hallway of the house I paid for. The house I built with my own hands and my own business, holding the pajamas I folded, staring at family photos on the wall. Photos of us smiling like we're happy. My chest feels hollow, empty, like someone just reached in and tore something out. But the worst part? The part that makes my hands shake? It's not what he said about me. It's what he just planted in my daughter's mind. About her own body. About her own mother. About what love is supposed to look like. Later that night, when I go to tuck Lyra in, she turns slightly away from me. Her voice is so small, I almost don't hear it. Mommy, if I get fat, will Daddy hate me too? My name is Aveline Kale, and this is the story of how one sentence ended my marriage and started a war I didn't know I'd have to fight. Because the next day, everything changed. If you need to see what happened next, if you need to see a woman who refused to let her daughter grow up thinking cruelty is love, then hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets darker before it gets better. But I promise you, it's worth staying for. Because some battles aren't just about leaving. They're about making sure your daughter never has to fight the same one. Now let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand exactly how we got here. My name is Aveline Kale, and I need to tell you about the night my marriage ended, even though it took me months to realize it. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. Just another evening in our Kentucky home. The kind of night where the dishwasher hums in the background and the TV in the kids' room plays that same cartoon Lyra watches every night before bed. I was in the hallway, standing on cold wood floors in my bare feet, folding her unicorn pajamas, the little purple ones with the sparkles that she refuses to outgrow. Through her half-open bedroom door, I heard my daughter's voice, small and curious. Daddy, why don't you kiss Mommy goodnight anymore? I stopped folding. My hands went still on the fabric. Lucian's voice came next. My husband. The father of my child. His tone was low and casual, like he was explaining why the sky is blue. Because that fat hippo you call mom disgusts me. Men like pretty things. You'll understand when you're older. The silence that followed felt like the whole house held its breath. Even the baby monitor seemed to stop buzzing. I stood there in the hallway, holding those pajamas, staring at the family photos on the wall. Photos of us smiling. Photos of the house I bought with money I earned. Photos of a life I thought was real. I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was just this numbness spreading through my chest like cold water. Lucian kept talking. I could hear him now, his voice softer but still clear enough. Mommy's always tired because she eats too much. That's why she's lazy. That's why she doesn't play with you as much as I do. Each word was a poison drop in my daughter's mind. I stepped back carefully, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the linen closet. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, sat down at the island and stared at the sink as if the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. Let me tell you how we got here. I grew up with nothing. My family was the kind of poor where you learn to fix things yourself because hiring help isn't an option. When I was 23, I started Kale Homeworks with a rusted truck and a toolbox I bought at a yard sale. I worked every small renovation job I could find: bathroom tiles, kitchen cabinets, deck repairs. I didn't sleep much. I didn't complain. I just built. 10 years later, Kale Homeworks is a mid-sized remodeling company. We have crews, we have contracts, we keep half the suburb running. I'm not flashy, I'm not dramatic. I'm the woman who pays invoices on time and remembers the birthdays of everyone on my team. I met Lucian Thorne at a building expo 7 years ago. He was charming in that smooth, polished way some men have. He worked in sales for a materials company. He had good teeth and an easy laugh. He loved telling people he married up when he landed me. Everyone thought I was lucky. When Lyra was born, I thought I had everything: a family, a business, stability, the kind of life I used to dream about as a kid eating cereal for dinner. Lucian came downstairs that night, smiling like nothing happened. He kissed my cheek and suggested we watch a show together. I said, "I'm tired, you go ahead." He shrugged and turned on the TV. Inside, I was empty. Later, after he fell asleep on the couch, I went to tuck Lyra in. I opened her door quietly. She was curled up under her blanket, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I kissed her forehead. She turned slightly away from me. "Mommy?" Her voice was so small. "If I get fat, will Daddy hate me too?" My throat closed. I kissed her again and whispered, "No, baby. Never." I left her room and slid down the hallway wall, sitting on the floor with my back against the plaster, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about a bad husband anymore. This was about the story my daughter would believe about love for the rest of her life. By morning, I knew I would not be the same woman. I woke before my alarm. Dawn was just starting to creep through the bedroom curtains. Lucian was still asleep, his back turned to me like it had been for months. I got up quietly and went to the kitchen, made coffee, opened my laptop. The house was still and silent in that way it only is in the early morning, the next day. That's what I kept thinking. This is the next day. I opened the business account. I told myself I was just checking something routine, but my fingers moved with purpose. I started looking at the small, regular transfers to our joint account, transfers that didn't match payroll or vendor payments. I followed the trail. The joint account was feeding other accounts I never authorized, credit cards I didn't open. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling. Small charges at bars, hotels, expensive dinners, all categorized as client meetings. I printed every statement. The pages came out of the printer one by one, stacking up on the kitchen table like thin, white accusations. Lyra came downstairs in her school uniform, rubbing her eyes. She looked at me differently now. Colder. She repeated something Lucian must have said. "Mommy, you're always too busy." I wanted to pull her close and explain everything, but she was 6 years old. How do you explain betrayal to someone who still believes in the tooth fairy? I drove her to school in silence. Later that morning, I was at a construction site. We were renovating a small office building downtown. Alara Voss, one of our design consultants, met me there to go over tile options. She's been with me for 3 years. Sharp, honest, doesn't waste time. She looked at me across the dusty break room table and said, "You look like you haven't slept in a week." I tried to brush it off. But Alara has a way of seeing through walls. "Aveline, what happened?" I told her. All of it. The hallway. The insult. Lyra's question about getting fat. Alara's face went hard. Not sad. Angry. "This isn't just him being cruel," she said. "This smells like a setup." She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. Thalia Wren, attorney at law. "She helped my sister survive an ugly divorce. You don't have to call her, But don't stay blind. I took the card. I didn't say anything. That night, Lucian acted normal. He joked at dinner, scrolled his phone, patted Lyra's head like he was father of the year. I stayed mostly silent, watching him like a stranger. Every joke felt like a lie. After everyone went to bed, I sat at my desk and stared at the printed bank statement spread out in front of me. If he can lie about me to our daughter, what else has he lied about? I called Thalia Wren the next morning. I tried to make it sound hypothetical at first. If a friend overheard her husband saying something terrible to their child, what should she— Thalia cut me off. Aveline, this is about you, and we both know it. Her voice was firm but kind. She didn't waste time with sympathy. She gave me facts. Abusers often build a narrative in advance. They paint their partner as unstable, obsessed, dangerous. They do it slowly so that when the relationship ends, everyone already believes their version. My hands felt cold. Don't confront him yet, Thalia said. Document everything, and let me connect you with someone who can help. 2 days later, I met Eldon Gray. He was older, maybe mid-50s, with gray hair and the kind of steady presence that said he'd seen every version of this story. We met in a quiet diner off the highway. I handed him everything I had: bank statements, Lucian's daily routines, his phone number. Eldon didn't make promises. He just said, "Give me a week." A week later, he came back. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were phone logs, screenshots of text messages, photos. The texts were between Lucian and a man named Cassian Rook, a friend of his. They were talking about me. One message said, "Lyra's useful leverage. Just keep pushing Aveline until she snaps in front of people." Another said, "She's too soft to ever leave. I just need to play the victim long enough." I felt sick. Then Eldon showed me the photos. Lucian with a woman, younger, blonde. Her name was Kaya Rowan. They were leaving a short-term rental downtown, laughing at a bar, his hand on her lower back. Eldon's report included more. Lucian had been telling Kaya he was trapped in a loveless marriage with a bitter workaholic who lets herself go. He promised her that once he got his share from Kale Homeworks, they'd start over, with Lyra and a better mother figure. I read that line 3 times. Better mother figure. Thalia met with me later that afternoon. She laid it out clearly. This is premeditated, Aveline. He's not losing control. He's staging a custody war. And he's been setting you up as the villain for months. I felt stupid, humiliated, furious at myself for believing his "I married up" story. That night, Lyra showed me a drawing she made at school. She was so proud of it. She held it up with both hands. In the picture, Daddy was drawn in bright gold crayon, big and smiling. Lyra was in pink. And me? I was in gray, with angry scribbles covering my whole body. I stared at that drawing for a long time after she went to bed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was rescue. I met Thalia and an accountant named Alden Price in a quiet office downtown. The table was covered in thick folders, legal pads, and coffee rings. We mapped out everything that was in my name: Kale Homeworks, the house, vehicles, retirement accounts, Lyra's small savings account. Alden showed me how Lucian had been bleeding the business. He'd been using company credit for personal expenses. If I didn't act, he could drag the whole thing down. Thalia suggested a restructuring, quiet, legal, airtight. Move Kale Homeworks under a new holding entity, one that's controlled solely by you. Retitle the house in a trust tied to Lyra's future. Make your sister Rowena a co-trustee. I hesitated. "This feels cold," I said. Thalia looked at me. "Aveline, he called your daughter leverage. You're not being cold, you're being smart. I remembered Lyra's drawing, the gray scribbles over my body, the gold crayon around him. I signed the papers. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I managed construction crews, picked Lyra up from school, made dinner, smiled when I needed to. By night, I signed documents, opened new accounts, revoked Lucian's access to business credit cards under the excuse of fraud prevention. I opened a dedicated trust for Lyra's education, legally separate from any marital property. Rowena signed on as co-trustee. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Whatever you need." The first glitch came when Lucian tried to use a card at a bar and it declined. He came home annoyed. "Something's wrong with the banks." I apologized with a straight face. "I'll call them tomorrow." Inside, I was cutting every wire he thought he could pull. One night, I sat in my office after signing the last stack of papers. I turned off the light and looked out the window at the dark street. I wasn't hoping he'd change anymore. I was preparing for the day I'd leave, and making sure he couldn't take Lyra's life down with him. Lucian started sensing something. He couldn't name it, but he felt the shift. One morning, he suggested a family day at the park. "For Lyra," he said, "we need more memories together." I knew it was staged. I called Thalia. "He may want to provoke you on camera," she said. "Don't give him a show." The park was bright that afternoon. Kids were laughing. Ice cream trucks played their jingles. It looked like a perfect family day. Cassian Rook was there, Lucian's friend. He stood near the playground with his phone out, pretending to film his own kids. But I saw the angle. He was pointing it at me. Lucian started poking. "Lyra, doesn't Mommy look tired? She's never really present, is she?" He said it loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Some moms just aren't wired for nurturing." He kept pushing, harder. "This is exactly what I've been telling people. Look at how you're acting." I could feel his plan. He wanted me to snap, to yell, to give him something he could show a judge. Instead, I went very still. I reached into my bag and pulled out a slim folder. I handed it to him quietly. Inside were printed texts, the ones where he called Lyra useful leverage, photos with Kaya, summaries from Eldon's report, notes on his hidden debts. I leaned close and said one thing. "If you want a record, Lucian, let's make sure it's complete. You're on camera pretending to be a parent. And here, on paper, is what you are when you think no one's looking." Cassian lowered his phone. He looked at Lucian, confused. I took Lyra's hand. "We're going home." In the car, Lyra was scared. She didn't understand what just happened. I looked at her in the rearview mirror and said, "My job is to keep you safe. If anyone makes you feel small on purpose, even Daddy, that person is not your safe person." She repeated it quietly. "Not my safe person." That phrase became our new rule. Mediation day came 3 weeks later. The room was bland. Beige walls, bad coffee, a long table. Lucian arrived in a crisp shirt with his lawyer beside him. He tried to look calm, wounded, reasonable. He started with his rehearsed story. "I'm worried about Lyra's emotional environment. Aveline is overworked. She's unstable. Sometimes she's scary." He painted himself as the concerned father, the one trying to protect his child from an angry, bitter mother. Thalia let him talk. She didn't interrupt. She just took notes. When he finished, she opened her folder. She laid out the bank records, the hidden accounts, the misuse of business funds. She showed the text screenshots, the ones where he called Lyra leverage, the ones where he admitted he was trying to push me to snap. She showed Eldon's reports, the affair with Kaya, the lies he told her. The mediator's face changed. Lucian's lawyer read faster, his expression draining. Thalia outlined the danger clearly. This is not just a bad husband. This is someone whose behavior is manipulative, financially abusive, and emotionally harmful to his child. She proposed terms: primary physical custody for me, supervised visitation for Lucian until he completed counseling, no access to Kale homeworks or related assets. Lucian tried one last threat. "I'll ruin you, Aveline. You're nothing without me." Thalia pointed to his own words in the file. She mentioned how quickly this could become a criminal matter. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something. Lucian's hand shook as he signed the agreement. I walked out of that building feeling wrung out, shaky. But for the first time in months, the ground felt like it belonged to me again. 3 months later. We live in a smaller apartment now, across town. It's not as big as the house, but it's filled with light. There are chip mugs in the kitchen and Lyra's art taped to the walls. Kale Homeworks is stable, growing even. I hired more staff so I could be present with Lyra. She sees a therapist named Naira Hale every week. At first, I was terrified. What if she blamed me? What if the damage was already done? But week by week, I see her brightening. We cook simple meals together now. Do homework at the kitchen table without raised voices. We laugh at silly cartoons. We have routines that feel safe. I hear about Lucian sometimes. Through Eldon, through mutual acquaintances. He's living smaller now. Restricted visitation, trying to rebuild his image, but he has much less power than he thought he did. I don't feel sharp anger anymore, just distance. One night, Lyra asked me a question while I was tucking her in. "Mommy, what if I grow up and look like you? Will people hate me too?" I remembered the first night. The hallway, the pajamas in my hands, the silence. But this time, I didn't freeze. I sat on the floor beside her bed. I looked her in the eyes. "Bodies change, sweetheart. That's normal. But love doesn't sound like disgust. Love doesn't make you feel small. Anyone who makes you feel small on purpose is not your safe person, no matter what name they have." She nestled into me. She believed me a little more than she did yesterday. That's enough for now. Last weekend, I spoke on a small panel for women in business. I didn't name names. I didn't tell the whole story. But I talked about resilience, about protecting yourself, about knowing when to walk away. Afterward, 3 women came up to me. They thanked me quietly. They said they needed to hear it. This morning, Lyra and I painted an accent wall in our apartment. We got color on our clothes. We laughed when I smeared blue on her nose by accident. As I watched her pick up the roller, concentrating so hard, I thought about what Lucian tried to teach her. He tried to teach her that love looks at you and says, "You disgust me." I've decided the rest of our lives will prove the opposite. Real love looks at you, even in all your softness, and says, "You're safe here." And we are. If you're still here, it means stories like this matter to you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Because every woman who walks away teaches another woman that she can too.